Hi everybody, my name's Sophie and today I want to welcome you to Crime and Paint, a video series I started where I talk about a true crime case while I paint a painting. So if you're like me and are just completely fascinated with everything true crime, I would love for you to stick around, maybe subscribe, definitely like the video while you're here. So, last week I talked about John List, family slaughterer, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the most infamous serial killers ever. I'm sure you at least have heard of him. His name is Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker. Now, I just want to do a quick disclaimer before I dive into everything. Today we are going to be talking about some very dark, very heavy topics, so if that is something that might upset you, I think maybe you should skip this video. So if you're someone who came from last week, if you remember, I did a painting based off of John List's bust. Today I am going to be doing a painting based off of Richard Ramirez, or the Night Stalker's sketches from the police before they knew who he was. I could have done a painting based off of the actual Richard Ramirez, but honestly, the guy kind of creeps me out. Not kind of, he really does creep me out, and I didn't want to look at his face for that long, so I'm going off of a sketch. I hope you like it. Alright, let's jump into it. Richard was the youngest of 5 siblings, and his childhood growing up was just basically like how to make someone into a serial killer 101. Like, his family did a real number on him, and it's really not surprising what he ended up becoming. So, at the age of 2, he got hit in the head with a falling dresser. I don't know how that would happen, but that's what happened. And he ended up like going on like unconscious and getting stitches in his head and all of that. And then at the age of 5, he got hit in the head with a swing and also fell unconscious. Then at 6, he started having epileptic seizures, which were caused by the multiple head injuries he had as a child. And if that wasn't bad enough, he actually, when he got a little bit older, he started spending a lot of time with his one cousin, Miguel. Now, he did this because he was trying to stay away from his house because his father was extremely abusive to his kids, his wife, to everyone. So Richard wanted to get out of that environment, but ended up not at a better one really at all, because Miguel was seriously messed up. He was a former soldier during the Vietnam War, and his time there, either that must have messed him up or this guy was already messed up, because he did a lot of horrendous things when he was over in Vietnam, including assaulting women, killing them, and defacing them in horrible ways. Like, he actually showed Richard, who was 12 at the time, a picture of him with one of these women that he assaulted, killed, and then he cut off her head and was like posing with it in the picture like it was like something, like a trophy, like something to be proud of. So if showing a picture of a decapitated woman to a 12-year-old boy wasn't bad enough, Miguel also taught Richard all these like ways to kill people and capture them, and all these techniques and how to fight, because I don't know why. I don't know why this guy did that. It was really wrong to do that to a 12-year-old boy, but that's what him and Richard would do when they hung out, I guess. They would talk about murdering people and practice killing people. And it gets worse still. One day, when Richard's over at Miguel's house, Miguel and his wife, Jessie, they are getting into an argument. It's very heated, and Miguel ends up grabbing his gun and shooting his wife, killing her instantly, right in front of Richard. And apparently he told Richard not to tell anyone and to just go home, and Richard did that. seemingly unaffected by this at all. I mean, at this point, they'd been talking about murder all the time, how to kill people. He'd been shown like these pictures of like dead women. So I guess at this point, Richard was already really messed up. So Miguel ended up getting arrested for that, but he wasn't charged with murder for reasons of insanity, and ended up only serving like 4 years at a mental institution. Shortly after Miguel was arrested, Richard ended up moving in with his sister and her husband. And once again, this was not a better situation for him. Yes, he wasn't getting abused by his father, but it turns out his sister's husband was this sick, peeping Tom, and he decided bringing this young, like 12, 13-year-old Richard along with him to peep on women was a good idea. I don't know what's up with this family, but like I said, how to turn someone into a serial killer 101, for real. Then when Richard's older, he gets a job at the Holiday Inn and almost instantly starts with petty crimes. He used like the master key of the hotel to break into people's rooms and take their things. He also started, doing some of these peeping Tom acts where he would hide out in the room, wait for the people to like come in and go to sleep, and just kind of watch them and see if he could get away with it without getting caught, which he did. Until one day he got a little bold and decided that peeping wasn't enough. So he actually tried to assault a woman in her bedroom at the Holiday Inn. Luckily, her husband came in, beat up Richard, and stopped anything bad from happening. Thank goodness. Richard ended up losing his job for that, obviously, as he should. But unfortunately, he wasn't charged for it. The couple just wanted to leave and put everything behind them, I guess. So that assault never went on his record, unfortunately. At a pretty young age, Richard had already started smoking marijuana. He was actually introduced to it by his cousin Miguel. But then when he got a little bit older, he started getting into more of the hard stuff like cocaine. And this was a pattern that continued through his whole entire life. Around that time, he also started to get into Satanism. Now, I'm not bashing Satanism at all. I know there's different branches, and I don't want to insult anyone's religion. But for Richard, Satanism seemed to be a very dark, very destructive thing. And, his worshiping of it, or worshiping of the devil, definitely went more to the dark, murdering people in Satan's name type thing. Or at least that's what Richard would say. He blamed a lot of his actions on Satanism. In 9th grade, Richard dropped out of school, and he was actually arrested shortly thereafter for possession of marijuana. Then when he was 22, he moved to California, and shortly after he moved there, he was arrested twice for stealing cars. And then in the early 80s, he committed his first murder. In 1984, Richard Ramirez killed a 9-year-old girl in her apartment basement in San Francisco. He had assaulted her and then stabbed her to death before hanging her body from a pipe. This murder was actually not attributed to him at first. It was only later with DNA evidence that they were able to tie him to this murder. On June 28th in 1984, Richard took the life of Jenny, who was 74 at the time. This was the first murder that took place in Los Angeles. And it said that her head was nearly completely decapitated. He had almost cut her head completely off. On March 17th in 1985, Maria was just outside of her apartment, she was going inside, when she was attacked by Richard Ramirez. He came and was going to shoot her point blank in the face. But lucky for her, she held her hands up in defense, and the bullet actually ricocheted off of her keys. So she survived. But then Richard went into her apartment, and there her roommate was trying to hide behind the kitchen counter. And when she heard him come inside, she peeked above it, and he shot her in the head, killing her instantly. Only an hour after that, Richard goes to Monterey Park. Monterey Park? If I'm saying that wrong, let me know. Anyway, he goes to Monterey Park, and there he kills a woman named Veronica by shooting her twice after he pulled her out of her car. At this point, the police are calling him the walk-in killer or the Valley intruder. On March 27th, 1985, Richard enters the home of Vincent and Maxine. Vincent was 64 at the time, and Maxine was his wife, and she was 44. So he goes into their bedroom and he kills Vincent instantly, shooting him in the head. And of course, the gunshot wakes up Maxine. So he actually ties Maxine up and demands that she tells him where all the house's valuables are. While Richard is going to collect the valuables, Maxine is actually able to get out of her restraints, and she goes and dives under the bed where they have a shotgun kept. Now she rounds on Richard with this gun, completely ready to shoot him, but unfortunately for her, the gun was not loaded. Can you imagine just you think you got loose from your binds, you're going for the gun, you think you've got this guy, and then, gosh, it's so upsetting. So Richard ends up shooting her 3 times and stabbing her. And I guess because he was extra pissed that she, fought back, he ends up cutting out her eyeballs and putting them in a jewelry box and taking them with him. Real sick stuff here. One good thing that came out of this incident is that he left the shell casings from the gun behind, and he also left a footprint in the flower bed outside of their home. This was able to help police connect all the murders so far together because they were able to match the footprint and the shell casings. So now they're starting to get an idea that they have a really sick serial killer on their hands. On May 14th in 1985, again, most of these murders took place in 1985, Richard Ramirez breaks into the home of Bill and Lillian. He shoots Bill and beats him up really bad. Then he binds Lillian and searches the house for valuables. Before he leaves, he assaults Lillian, and unfortunately, Bill ends up dying at the hospital. On May 29th, Richard takes a stolen car to the homes of Mabel and Florence. He attacks Florence with a hammer and binds her and ties her in the bathroom. Then he attacks Mabel. He assaults her and takes her lipstick and draws a pentagram on her body. Then he draws pentagrams in their bedrooms and in the bathroom before leaving. The women were found 2 days later, but unfortunately Mabel died in the hospital shortly after due to her injuries. On May 30th, he breaks into the home of Carol, who lives with her 11-year-old son. He ties up her son, and then he assaults Carol and steals every valuable he can from their house. On July 2nd, he breaks into the home of Mary. He knocks her out with a lamp, stabs her, and leaves her in her home for dead. On July 5th, he breaks into the home of 16-year-old Whitney. He attacks her in her sleep and tries to strangle her with a telephone cord. Apparently, the telephone cord sparks or something, and Ramirez takes this as a sign of Jesus trying to save her. So he actually leaves Whitney alive, thank goodness. On July 20th, Ramirez takes a machete and a gun and another stolen car and goes to the home of Layla and Maxon. He kills them both with the machete and the gun, then burglarizes their home. But I guess this wasn't enough for Richard because he goes to yet another house. This time it's the house of Chen Rong and his wife Sum Kid and their 8-year-old son. I'm sorry if I'm saying their name wrong, please correct me. He kills the husband instantly, and then he attacks the wife, Sum Kid, assaulting her, and then he binds up their 8-year-old son. Then he makes her go around and show him where all the house's valuables are and makes her swear on Satan that she's not lying and showed him where everything is. On August 6th, he breaks into the home of Chris and Virginia. He shoots Virginia in the face and shoots Chris in the neck. Chris fights back and Ramirez flees the scene. Luckily, the couple survives. On August 8th, he breaks into the home of Sakin and Elias. He fatally shoots Elias and then handcuffs, beats, and assaults his wife. He makes her show him where all of the family valuables are, and he ties up their 3-year-old son. On August 18th, Ramirez has left Los Angeles and now is in the San Francisco Bay Area. He breaks into the home of Peter and Barbara. He shoots Peter in the head, then beats and assaults Barbara before shooting her fatally. He then uses her lipstick to draw a pentagram and write "Jack the Knife" on the bedroom wall. So far at this point, the public wasn't really aware of everything that was going on. Police detectives in LA were trying to keep this relatively quiet. They were collecting a lot of, evidence, and they didn't want Richard to get spooked and to, stop what he was doing because he was getting brazen and he was committing one crime after another. So they were just kind of keeping everything under wraps. But then there was a televised conference where they basically just spilled everything. They talked about all the evidence that they had. They gave Richard Ramirez the name the Night Stalker, and they warned everyone to lock their windows, lock their doors, that there was a crazy serial killer out there ready to get you. That really pissed off the LA detectives because their whole case at this point, they were like, okay, it's all thrown out, he knows, because they were like, there's definitely no way that the killer wasn't watching. And Richard Ramirez was watching. And particularly the news that they had his footprint is what scared him the most. So Richard actually went to the Golden Gate Bridge and he threw his sneakers over it. There goes all the evidence. Now, despite the televised conference and Richard now knowing that the police were onto him, on August 24th, he goes and tries to break into yet another home. Luckily for this family, their 13-year-old son, James, was awake and he heard rustling outside the window. And at this point, like I said, everybody knew about the Night Stalker. So their son immediately goes and wakes up his parents and lets them know that he hears someone outside. Now, I don't know if he suspected it might have been the Night Stalker, but at the same time, people were cautious at this point. So him and his parents make a bunch of noise, and this actually scares Richard. So he runs back to another stolen car that he's taken to this house. Now, 13-year-old James, he actually runs out of the house while Richard's escaping, and he takes down the make and the model and the license plate number, partially, of this car. Real MVP, good on you. Good on you, James. Unfortunately, on the same night that James was able to get the make and model of the car, Ramirez actually went to another house. This was the house of Bill and Inez. He shot Bill 3 times, killing him instantly. Then he made Inez swear to Satan and told her to tell them, who knows what them, I guess the police, but he told her to tell them that the Night Stalker was there. 4 days later, only 4 days later, the police are actually able to find the stolen vehicle. And this time, they are actually able to pull a fingerprint off of the car. You see, Richard was very good about cleaning the cars of all evidence, but this time, he done messed up, and now the police have his rap sheet. They know who he is. On August 30th, Ramirez, not knowing that the police now know who he is, he gets on a bus to Arizona to go and visit his brother. I don't know why, and I tried to look it up, but I couldn't really find anything, but he ended up not seeing his brother, and he got back on a bus, like once he reached Arizona, he got back on a bus and returned to LA. So he gets back to LA like the very next day, and when he gets out, he immediately sees, in probably like one of those old newspaper things, he sees his mugshot just right on the cover, just right there. So Ramirez freaks out. He tries to carjack someone, and basically like these citizens like see him doing this, like it's broad daylight, and they stop him because like, you know, it's a little, like, they're not going to just let you do that. So Ramirez panics again, and he starts running. Like, he's hopping over fences, he's trying to get away, and eventually he gets to, like, this other part of town, and he tries again to take someone's car. This time, a group of guys see him doing this, and they're like, oh, hell no, like, you can't do that. And they end up beating Richard up bad. Like, one of them hits him over the head with a crowbar, and they keep him pinned down until the police arrive. This video is just so full of MVPs. First, 13-year-old boy taking down like the make, the model, part of the license plate. Now we got these group of guys just vigilante justice, just pinning down this guy, not letting him get away. Yes, I love it. That's the one thing I love about this thing. Everything else about this case is horrible, but the one thing I like about it is all the MVPs, these citizens joining together and helping capture this horrible monster of a man. So at this point, Richard is arrested and he's awaiting trial, and oh boy, his trial could be like a whole video in itself. It was just like a disaster zone. For one, there were just like so many women that admired him despite everything that he did. Particularly to women, like all the assaults, apparently women thought he was cute. I don't get it. I don't see it. He creeps me the out. But he had a lot of fans. And there was even a fan in the actual jury. Yeah, like there was somebody who was like completely in love with him. Her name was Cindy. She was just like completely in love with him. And like during the trial, if you watch it, you can see him like looking at her and winking at her. And apparently she made him like cupcakes for his birthday. It blows my mind. He even, you know, had a wife at one point. Like somebody married this guy despite everything that he did and like swore that up and down that he was innocent. There was a lot of people that thought he was innocent despite all of the evidence. I don't know. I guess like people are like, oh, well, I think he's cute, so I guess he's innocent. Because that's, you know, that's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. So, like I said, the trial took a long time. It was messy. like I said, it could be a whole other video, so I'm not gonna get too much into it, but I'll let you know that in 1989, he was convicted of 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 11 counts of assault. Oh, and 14 counts of burglary. I can't say that word. Of stealing stuff from people's houses. For all of this, he was sentenced to death, as he should have been. But as we all know, just because you're on death row doesn't mean that, you know, you die instantly. He had actually ended up spending 20 years behind bars, which honestly, I think that's worse, so I'm happy with that outcome. I wish he had actually spent more time behind bars, because that's what he deserved, because he was awful. So, Richard actually ended up passing away at the age of 53 from cancer. And that's the story of Richard Ramirez. It's a really tough one to get through. If you stuck with me through the whole video, thank you. I hope you enjoyed my painting. And I would love it if you would subscribe, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know if there's anything about the case that I missed that you think is important. Correct all the mispronunciation I did of everyone's names and places. I'm so bad at that and I apologize. But either way, I really look forward to hanging out with you guys again next week. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to talk about or look into. I love researching into all of this stuff, so please don't hold back. Suggestions are always welcome. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next week. Bye!